Avenue. Might see some slowing as they put the cones up. And it got a vehicle stalled in Upland on the 10 eastbound at Euclid Avenue. CP trying to get them out of the right-hand lane. Right now it's a slow drive from Indian Hill Boulevard. Got a crash at Anaheim, moving to the shoulder 57 southbound to Mercantile Avenue.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A. Copyright 2023.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers did not play like a team that wanted to close out their first-round playoff series. They lose by 17 last night in Memphis. The Lakers made only 10 of 39 three-pointers, including a 1-for-9 performance by LeBron. The number one seed in the Eastern Conference is out. Milwaukee loses by 2 at home in overtime to number 8 seed Miami. First time a number 8 knocks out a number 1 in the NBA playoffs since 2012. Golden State wins by 7 at Sacramento to go up 3-2. The defending champs can close out the Kings at home Friday night. The NFL draft kicks off tonight in Kansas City. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, a Pasadena native, is expected to be the number 1 pick of the Carolina Panthers. The Chargers have the 21st pick in the first round. The Rams don't pick until the second round at number 36. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tell me I'm the boy that girl. I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
1, 2, 3, go! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from the Merck Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere in the world in real time, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app and listen at your leisure anytime. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, do the firings of Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon from Fox News and CNN respectively signify any kind of shift in the cable television industry news values? Maybe less tolerance for provocative primetime personalities? Yes? No? Maybe? Are these high-profile firings indicative of any broader trends in the media industry? If so, what do these trends mean for the future of journalism and news reporting? Or are these firings just about the money? Tucker fired because he cost Fox News $787 million, and Don fired by CNN before he said or did something else that ended up costing CNN $787 million. We'll be joined by scholar, award-winning journalist, and professor Dr. Carsanya K. Wise Whitehead to discuss that and more in Hour 2. In our third Hour 2 conversations, up first, a federal grand jury has begun deliberations in the seditious conspiracy trial for members of the Proud Boys for their actions surrounding the January 6th Capitol riot and insurrection. Former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid is back today to unpack this case and shed some light on Donald Trump's still unfolding legal battles. At the top of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, the CEO of the black-owned and operated Lindustry joins us live in studio for a conversation about the success of Lindustry in its mission to provide financial assistance to help level the playing field for small businesses in the community so that they can succeed. I look forward to a conversation with Lindustry CEO Everett Sands on the backside of Hour 3. But in this first hour, let's talk politics and more with the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine and host of the Weekly Nation podcast, Jeet Heer. Jeet, welcome back here. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. It's great to talk to you again.
It's good to have you on. Thank you for your time. Glad we got an hour. A whole lot of political stuff to sort of unpack in this hour. Let me start broad.
Yeah, this is not a slow news week.
No, I was thinking the same thing. Not just thinking. I was saying to somebody yesterday who's not in the news business. They were just asking me how my week was. I said, have you been following the news? I said, yeah, I follow the news. I said, well, you should know I've had a crazy week because it's in talk radio. It can be feast or famine. In our business, period, it can be feast or famine. Some days there's nothing to talk about, it seems, and other days there's too much stuff to talk about.
Lenin once said, Vladimir Lenin once said, there decades in which nothing happens, and there are weeks in which decades happen.
Exactly.
And I think we've had a few weeks in which decades have happened.
No, that's a powerful point. I love that line. It's one of those weeks, and so there's a lot to talk about in this hour today. Let me start with this. Everybody, of course, is aware the president made his announcement earlier this week that he is going to seek re-election. I'm curious for starters to get your take on the reaction to that. No surprise, really, that he was going to make that announcement, but just your thoughts, broadly speaking, on the response to that announcement and what you think we can expect in the coming months.
Sure. I mean, it's no surprise, and in a lot of ways, I think Biden has kind of earned a lot of goodwill, not just for the sort of legislative achievements of the first 2 years, but also, the Democrats did, surprisingly well in the sort of midterms, and so people, I think there's a lot of people in the party who feel he's the way to go. But I think that is also conversely, there's all the polls show there's a segment of the Democrats who kind of feel like, it's not that they dislike Biden, but they think he's getting on there in age, and they'd want someone younger. And I was actually struck by a poll, and we can take polls, always with a grain of salt. But this is Fox, which does do good polls, and they had Biden at 60%, Robert Kennedy Jr. at 20%, and Marianne Williamson at 9%. And so I think that, I think Kennedy and Williamson, one could say many things about them, but they're not mainstream Democrats. So the fact that they're getting 30%, is maybe indicative that, there is an appetite for someone other than Biden, even though the party has sort of coalesced around Biden.
Not even Kennedy family members are behind Robert Kennedy Jr.'s challenge to the president.
No, I mean, this makes the numbers even more surprising. I mean, I think Robert Kennedy, if one knows anything about him, he's not kind of a mainstream figure. I'm trying to figure out, his numbers have actually gone up. He started with 10%, and now he's at 20%. I'm kind of wondering where that's coming from. Is it just the nostalgia for the Kennedy name? Mm-hmm. Or, is there, people wanting something else? I think if you have the party coalescing around one candidate, that often creates a vacuum. I think we saw that in 2016. And I thought this was going to be a cakewalk for Biden. And I'm starting to have a few doubts about that. I don't know. I mean, but having said that, I do think both Kennedy and Williamson are, they're not candidates I can see winning.
Well, obviously, I don't think anybody thinks they can win. The question is whether or not you can give the president a credible challenge. The last Kennedy to challenge a sitting president didn't win either. Make that Ted Kennedy, the late senator out of Massachusetts, who challenged Jimmy Carter while Carter was a sitting president. So it wasn't that Kennedy won. Clearly, he did not. But the bloodletting was so vicious and so ugly, and all the time and energy and effort that Jimmy Carter spent trying to beat back Ted Kennedy made him really ripe for Ronald Reagan, who just frankly ate his lunch in that particular race. So it's not about winning so much. The question is whether or not you think that Robert Kennedy Jr. can give the president a credible challenge.
Yeah, I mean, my initial assumption was always that he can't. I'm a little concerned about the polling, but I actually think, like, once people find out what Robert Kennedy's positions are, that he's just not, people, the name has a lot of value, a lot of historic resonance for people. But, like, when they look at his position on, like, vaccination, and other things, I think that, people, I think he won't be very credible and he'll shrink. I mean, that's sort of my assumption. Unless there's, like, enough people who are, like, want to send a message, which, could happen. I mean, I would actually say, in distinction to Ted Kennedy, Ted Kennedy in 1980, he's a very formidable figure. He's like a senator from Massachusetts. He's a guy with a lot of, like legislative victories. And he was a real voice for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party that felt Carter betrayed them. I don't know if Robert Kennedy has any of that.
Yeah, I don't think he has any of that either. But yet, the poll number you just cited ought to get somebody's attention. Again, I don't believe all polls. It is completely early in this process. But to the extent that he's at 20%, does in fact speak to the fact that many Democrats just think that Joe Biden is too old to seek re-election, and they may be looking for somebody else. We shall see. When we come forward, I want to get Jeet Heer's take on what progressives are to do about this. Clearly, no major Democrat has stepped up to challenge President Biden as yet. I don't expect they will, now that he's announced, in fact, that he's running for re-election. And yet it does leave true progressives. We brand this station, of course, as unapologetically progressive. And it does leave progressives sort of twisting in the wind. And I wonder what progressives are to think or to do more expressly in the months to come as we lead up to this presidential election in 2024. Just getting started in this hour, a lot of politics to unpack as we continue our conversation with Jeet Heer of The Nation magazine when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Congratulations to Grace Memorial Chapel and Funeral Home for being this week's winner of KBLA's Office of the Week. Your office won lunch for 10, delivered by the original Taco Pete. Congratulations to Grace Memorial Chapel and Funeral Home.
Periods don't care what you're doing, but your pads should. Get Always Triple Protection System in Always Day and Night Pads. Always Day Pads protect when active by wicking away gushes 2 times faster than leading store brands and giving us up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort. When we size up our pad at night, we get the same triple protection, plus up to 75% more coverage in the back for when we're laying down. No matter what, Always has you covered, day and night.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates U.S. Olympic gold medalist and Hall of Famer Jeanette Bolden Pickens, owner of the 27th Street Bakery. 27th Street Bakery sends a huge thank you to the community for all its support during the pandemic, serving the Los Angeles community with their signature sweet potato pie since 1956 and third-generation baker. The goal has never changed. Keep the business thriving for generations to come. Made with the freshest ingredients in each yam peeled by hand. 27th Street Bakery puts the home back in homemade with its signature vanilla added to all its amazing products, pies, cakes, cobblers, tea cakes, and the newest item, creamy sweet potato cheesecake. Call 323-233-3469. That's 323-233-3469. Have your order shipped by visiting 27thstreetbakery.com or stop by 2700 South Central Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90001, Tuesdays through Saturdays, 8 to 4.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Jeet Heer on KBLA Talk 1580. Jeet Heer is the national affairs correspondent for The Nation and host of their weekly podcast, The Nation. Delighted to have him in this first hour today. So, Jeet, I was saying a moment ago, as we were talking about President Biden announcing earlier this week, of course, he is running for re-election. He, in part, because of what you said earlier, the success of the midterm elections pushed everybody back to the sidelines. There was all kind of conversation leading up to the moment of this week when he announced his re-election campaign, all kind of conversation about whether or not he, in fact, would do that and whether or not there would be a credible challenge to him, as we saw from Ted Kennedy against Jimmy Carter back in the day. And so he successfully kept everybody on the sidelines. We have Robert Kennedy Jr., as you mentioned. We have Marianne Williamson, as you mentioned, but nobody seriously challenging the president at this point, and I suspect they will not. But it still begs the question as to what progressives are going to do this time around. At least 4 years ago, progressives had a couple candidates that were in the running, but now progressives are pretty sidelined at the moment. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big decisions are that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and others aren't running again. These would be candidates who have a real constituency and a real power. Everyone from both the centrist and the progressive wing of the party have decided to line up behind Biden. I think that the way to think about this is that presidential politics is not like the only politics, right? Mm-hmm. But in a lot of ways, we saw some real victories recently, like with Brandon Johnson in Chicago, and a lot of these special elections. I think that's where the battle's going to be in terms of changing the party or shifting the party in one direction or another. And where you are in California, I think that it's going to be a big kind of Senate thing, and being a senator from California is a very big position. So I think that I think for not just progressives but for anyone in politics, I think the grassroots, that's where the energy is going to be, and then trying to push the Biden White House. I think that there's been a couple of cases where they kind of, especially with the new chief of staff, Jeff Zients, they're kind of edging a little bit towards the center, but then they get pushed back, and I think that's going to be a real important dynamic in the coming years, just to get Biden to hold the line.
Yep, it's going to be fascinating to watch this race as it unfolds. If, as everybody seems to be predicting, it's a rematch of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I was talking to one of our guests yesterday. You got two old white guys running against each other. That's not going to inspire huge turnout, and to the extent that it does, it will excite older voters. Older voters tend to make a stronger case for good turnout on Election Day for the Republican Party. And so I think the age factor in some ways isn't going to make such a big deal. Again, you got two older white guys running against each other. Where it does make a difference is in turnout. And to the extent, once again, that older voters tend to be Republican and they are motivated for a variety of reasons to turn out and vote, it's going to be, I think, a challenge for President Biden to turn out the vote. For starters, just based on that.
I think that's right. Although I think the midterms actually, where the young voters did turn out in a healthy amount,
Right.
and we're the real reason why the Democrats did well. The big dynamic in America right now is the age difference that you mentioned, but also that a lot of young people have a real loathing for the Republican Party, and it's not so much they love Joe Biden, but they see the Republican Party, as something that sort of almost like an existential threat to them. Just in terms, in the real terms of climate issue, guns, abortion, the anti-trans stuff. There's I don't think you can underestimate, the negative voting, and to the extent that I think the Democrats, if they don't get young people out, they're going to be in big trouble in 2024. The only demographics that they win are under 50, right?
Yeah.
And even under 45, really.
Well,
but having said that, Biden's not the ideal candidate, but I think that people. I think if people know what the stakes are, and on the more positive side, I think some of the stuff Biden did, in terms of student debt relief, is a big factor. And right now, I don't think the Dobbs thing and the way abortion is an issue has totally changed American politics, right? In a way in which for a lot of people, I think they realize now you can't ever afford to sit things out.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I don't disagree that young people are going to have to turn out in big numbers for President Biden to save the day, as it were, and we will see, what that looks like, obviously. But the other point I was pushing toward is this: that you got to excite young people to come out a second time, and the data I'm looking at doesn't suggest that they're excited right now. Number one. Number two, you have to excite the base, broadly speaking, and all the data, as you know. This is pretty incontrovertible. All the data suggests that Democrats writ large will take Joe Biden over Donald Trump any day of the week, but the base, the Democratic base, in poll after survey after study, not excited about Joe Biden necessarily. That's a problem. But then thirdly, you have to do this against a guy who's going to excite the base on the Republican side to some extent. Just because the other side at this point wants anybody but Joe Biden. They think he's a sort of failed president. So my point is I'm concerned about this rematch on the one hand. On the other hand, the reality is that Joe Biden is the only one to date who has beaten Donald Trump. So maybe the president just doesn't give him the respect that he deserves, Jeet.
Yeah, no, I think Biden does deserve a good deal of respect. Both for the victory in 2020, but also in the sort of party building. I think that he is somebody who, realizes that he's a party man and, has to listen to the party. And so I think that's where maybe the kind of hope factor might come in. I think there's a couple of issues where Biden's been because of his age and because of who he is, kind of a bit reluctant.
Right.
But then he gets prodded by the Democrats in Congress, and he moves. I think abortion is actually one issue. If you look at the initial reaction to Dobbs, the White House was they were hit on the head, and they were kind of stunned, and didn't know what to do. And then you had people Elizabeth Warren and others, laying out a strategy for fighting this and using executive power. And Biden's been much more bold than he initially was. So I kind of think, I think the dynamic we're going to have to see is to what degree can Biden be pushed to, offer a really positive vision.
Yeah.
And that's a positive vision, but to be fighting, I think that's a big thing. I think Biden's instincts are always to try to get along, but I think people want a Democrat who can fight.
Yep, I'm watching these three groups, and then we'll move on to some other news because there is some Donald Trump news this morning. Surprise, surprise. So I'm watching young voters and what the data is telling us about them. I'm watching the base writ large and whether or not they're going to get more excited as we get closer to Election Day. They just aren't right now. And thirdly and finally, I'm watching, as we were discussing earlier, progressives. And whether or not they are or can be excited to turn out in this race. And I think you may be right in the end that it's, you make the choice from the available options you have. And if the options are Joe Biden or Donald Trump, that really ain't an option. We shall see. Let me move on from that. We got another year or so to talk about that. This news.
Yeah. Actually, I'll mention one other factor, though, which is that I think in the primaries, we mentioned, neither of us consider Kennedy or Williamson serious candidates. But I think that, I think people use them as a protest vote. And if their numbers are healthy enough, Biden might have to, become more active and do stuff. And I think especially Williamson is I think for a lot of reasons she's a flawed candidate, but she's putting out a fairly progressive agenda. So I actually think the primaries, again, if there's a protest vote out there, that might actually send a signal.
Well, that's my point. I'm watching this progressive base to see how they're going to process this and whether or not they start, to your point, casting votes in protest. And then you got a news story. And once you got a news story, it catches on like wildfire. And then the president's got a challenge, and that's going to be problematic. So let's see in the coming months. Donald Trump, who we referenced earlier in this conversation, is back in the news once again because he has lost. Yesterday, he lost an emergency attempt to block his former Vice President Mike Pence from testifying about their direct conversations in this latest boost to a federal crime investigation examining Trump's and others' actions after the 2020 election. Trump has fought mightily to block Mike Pence from testifying in this case. This time, though, after all these many attempts, he has failed to close off answers from this particular witness, Mike Pence, in the special counsel's investigation. So this latest order from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals likely means that Pence will testify quickly before this grand jury. And here again, an unprecedented development in modern presidential history where a vice president is going to testify against his former boss, the president of the United States, Donald Trump. What do you make of this major story, Jeet Heer?
Well, yeah. First of all, I'm just really glad that the investigation continues. I think a lot of us with the January 6th stuff, there's a real worry that they went after all the little people, the people who listened to Donald Trump and were incited to riot and attack the Capitol, and the Department of Justice has been reluctant to go on. So I just want to say, all credit to New York for continuing with us. And I think that the other big thing is that there's a lot of these cases. There's a lot of things that Trump did that were borderline criminal, and I think we're starting to see. And there's real reluctance because of tradition and because of the idea, well, this guy was president, and it's politically very risky to go after someone that big. But I think the dam is breaking. I think that we're actually starting to see. I think this is going forward. There's the indictment also in New York about the forged papers. There's Georgia, where we clearly have Trump trying to influence election officials. So I actually think that Trump is going to be really tied down with a lot of this legal stuff. The only proviso, and I want to tell listeners to be, when the New York indictment came down, Trump's poll numbers went up in the Republican Party, not in the nation at large, but that's when he started to surge ahead. And so this is not a political solution. I am very hopeful that the courts will catch up with Trump and that they will be at the very least he'll be tied up with this stuff for many years to come. But I don't think it's going to solve the political problem, which is Republican voters love this guy.
Yep. No, I think you're right about that. When we come forward, I want to come back, though, to this Mike Pence issue specifically and get your take specifically on what do you make of the fact that Mike Pence now is going to testify against his former boss. We'll come to that. A great deal more to talk about in this hour as we move forward. The Jeet Heer of The Nation on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The civil suit accusing former President Trump of battery, defamation, and rape continues today in a Manhattan courtroom. E. Jean Carroll, who is 79, has accused Trump of raping her in a department store dressing room in the late 1990s and then defaming her once she came forward with the allegations. In Pennsylvania, Lehigh University police say 4 Montgomery County men have been charged with simple assault and harassment following a reported hate crime. The Northampton County District Attorney says the men, who are not students or alumni at the school, assaulted a black university student multiple times after yelling racist comments at him from a passing car. Cops tracked down the defendants using security camera footage that shows the incident and the car involved. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Just getting reports of a crash in Studio City, middle lane blocked on the 1-1 southbound, just past the 134 and the 170 split, so a little extra slowing as you approach that interchange. Caltrans is going to close the lane down in Lincoln Heights. Right lane will be closed on the 5 northbound between Broadway and Pasadena Avenue. Might see some slowing as they put the cones up. And it got a vehicle stalled in Upland on the 10 eastbound at Euclid Avenue. See if you're trying to get them out of the right-hand lane. Right now it's a slow drive from Indian Hill Boulevard. Got a crash in Anaheim, moving to the shoulder 57 southbound of Mercantile Avenue.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A. Copyright 2023.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers did not play like a team that wanted to close out their first-round playoff series. They lose by 17 last night in Memphis. The Lakers made only 10 of 39 three-pointers, including a 1-for-9 performance by LeBron. The number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference is out. Milwaukee loses by 2 at home in overtime to number 8 seed Miami. First time a number 8 knocks out a number 1 in the NBA playoffs since 2012. Golden State wins by 7 at Sacramento to go up 3-2. The defending champs can close out the Kings at home Friday night. The NFL draft kicks off tonight in Kansas City. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, a Pasadena native, is expected to be the number 1 pick of the Carolina Panthers. The Chargers have the 21st pick in the first round. The Rams don't pick until the second round at number 36. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tell me you're the boy that girl. I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with
us. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with one of the panelists, the owner of Kids Love. Take a listen.
So Kids Love, KIDSLUV, is a first-to-market zero-sugar, vitamin-enhanced functional beverage for kids.
So the zero sugar is really important because if not, the sugar gets on the teeth, it can cause cavities. So as a mom, I love this vitamins and hydration in one. Tell us what's happening here with Chase Bank today.
So I would say, I think what Chase is trying to do is create a community actually for entrepreneurs, a place where people can go. They have the space to do it. It's a beautiful space. And to be able to have these conversations. There are so many benefits to being a women-owned and certified business from a standpoint of getting into stores, not paying the slotting fees of what it takes to be in stores. So I think Chase is trying to bring awareness to a lot of the things that people just don't know about, that not only the bank can help, but outside of the bank, their relationships can help create.
That's beautiful. And I know, this is how we build equity in communities of color, is kind of spreading that information and that knowledge. So thank you for being here today and doing your part and letting these women know that it is possible.
For KBLA 1580, I'm Aisha Cairo in the community with Chase.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Some breaking news here out of Mississippi, the state of my birth. Carolyn Bryant Donham, the woman at the center of the Emmett Till killing, is dead at the age of 88. She is the white woman at the center of the Emmett Till lynching nearly 70 years ago, as you well know the story. The 88-year-old had been battling cancer and was in hospice care, and we are told that she has died in Mississippi at the age of 88. She is the white woman who was accused of setting off the 1955 lynching of 14-year-old Emmett in Money, Mississippi. Her death comes after a Mississippi grand jury declined to indict her in August of last year over Till's death. You may recall that story. There were a number of protesters who went to the place where she was living, the facility, demanding that she be arrested because they found last year the arrest warrant in the basement of the jail. As I recall, they found this arrest warrant that all these years later, almost 70 years later, had never been served on her. She essentially lied on Emmett Till, but all these years had been protected from her lie. And the arrest warrant that was supposed to be used to arrest her was never used. Again, as I recall, I've covered this story many times over my career. As I recall, the police chief at the time said that they didn't want to bother her. She was a mother with children, and she was busy mothering, and they didn't really want to bother her, as it were. And so 70 years went by, and that arrest warrant was never served on Carolyn Bryant Donham. But now it will not be served. She's 88, and she is dead. Passed away today, apparently, in Mississippi. Again, 70 years, almost 70 years after the lynching of Emmett Till, and that part of the story is now closed. So she rode that out 70 years, never got arrested, warrant never served. You know the old line, justice delayed can in fact be justice denied. And so for whatever she did to lead to the tragic lynching of Emmett Till, she was never held responsible for. Whatever story she told to those white men who went and pulled him out of that bed and lynched him, she never was held accountable for it for 70 years. I digress, but there's breaking news there. Carolyn Bryant Donham is now deceased. Okay, it's tragic. It's tragic. I'm just trying to process all this in real time. It's tragic when you see a story like that. Nobody wishes, anybody to die. Of course, we all, as I said yesterday, talking about Harry Belafonte, every one of us eventually has to do that dance with mortality. So you don't wish death on anyone, even those who, even your haters. And yet, there's something really tragic beyond the way young 14-year-old Emmett was lynched. Something really tragic about the fact that she lived another 70 years essentially and was never, ever, ever held accountable for her actions in that case. And that is what troubles me this morning. I digress. We continue our conversation now with Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine and host of the Weekly Nation podcast. We were talking before news, traffic, and sports, and before that breaking news, Jeet, about Donald Trump losing his fight to stop Mike Pence from testifying in front of this grand jury. Again, this has never happened in the history of our country, never happened in the history of the executive branch. So specifically on that question, before I move on very quickly here, what do you make of the fact that Mike Pence will now have to testify about his conversations with Donald Trump vis-a-vis what happened January 6th?
Well, yeah, I think there's something very interesting just about Pence's own particular situation, because he's been reluctant to testify, even though, he's sort of given comments that indicates obviously he doesn't appreciate what Trump did on January 6th, including possibly inciting a mob to kill Pence himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And put Pence and his family in danger. But Pence has been, I think, the sort of very figure of Republican cowardice in the face of Trump. This is Trump tried, came close to getting Pence killed, and Pence, has mildly rebuked Trump, but also not wanting to be part of justice. He resisted testifying to the congressional investigation, and he resisted on the argument of executive power, and this would hurt the power and the special relationship between the vice president and the president to make a vice president testify. And I'm really glad to see that the courts have been able to overcome that, and to to say that the United States should be a nation of laws, not of men. And that actually goes to the Emmett Till. I mean, I just wanted to comment on that. I mean that it's not just this white woman, who's at the center of this, but this whole culture of impunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of white people being able to enforce apartheid and with violence and get away with it. And she was able to get away with it because the sheriff and the community and nobody wanted to see that crime punished. And I think that's a very horrible thing to live in a society where people know crimes are committed and they go unpunished. And I think that that's what happened with Trump's whole presidency. Everybody saw it. We all saw the crimes that were done, and there's been a reluctance to punish. But I just want to be. The good news is, in at least Trump's case, we're seeing some movement.
Yeah. No, I love your phrase, and that's why you are the national affairs correspondent, because you're a great writer. It's a great phrase. It's a culture of impunity. That's exactly what it is. We see that in our country, sadly. This culture of impunity that Jeet Heer speaks of now is what allows a woman to live for 70 more years and never be held accountable for her actions in the Emmett Till case. And to Jeet's point, that has happened far too long already vis-a-vis Donald Trump. But now, as Malcolm X might say, the chickens are coming home to roost. We hope, at least. Again, none of this means that Trump will ever be necessarily wearing an orange jumpsuit behind bars. We'll wait to see what actually happens in this case, or these cases, plural. There are many of them, as Jeet said earlier. But it is fascinating. It's interesting to see.
And also, I mean, in the news today, the ongoing rape case.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the testimony. Yeah. Testimony in the rape case against Donald Trump. That is proceeding. From what I'm told, the witness in that case, the lady the woman at the center of that story, I am told, I didn't see it, gave some powerful testimony yesterday. I saw a number of articles where she said, I am here today because I want my life back. I'm here to reclaim my life. And she went on to tell this apparently horrible story about what she alleges was a rape of her by Donald Trump, of course, prior to his presidency. But that case is proceeding. These other 4 cases that Jeet mentioned earlier in New York State, 2 in the Department of Justice, one about the documents at his house in Mar-a-Lago, the other, of course, about January 6th. Fannie Willis in Atlanta, Georgia. So there are a number of cases. And again, this woman on trial now, not on trial, but presenting her case about rape. There's a whole lot coming at Donald Trump. It takes 5 minutes to get it out. There's so much coming at him. But again, to Jeet's point, this culture of impunity seems to be closing in on him. And now we know that Mike Pence, his vice president, who again, he tried to go after essentially, now will be testifying against him. We will see what happens with that. Moving on to 2 of the other things I want to cover in this hour, to talk about politically in this hour. There's a new poll out, speaking of Donald Trump, that finds that less than 1/4 of Americans, view MAGA, however you want to pronounce it, positively. A new nationwide NBC News poll finds that just 24% of Americans have a positive view of the MAGA movement, while 45% had a negative view. So this is good data, it seems, Jeet, for the president, that people are having, if not Donald Trump, having a view of his so-called movement that is not so positive.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think that's really where the strength of the Democrats lie. I mean, you and I might wish that, they could also have a more positive program to excite voters. But I do think that the real revulsion that a lot of Americans have against MAGA is a very powerful political force. And, it comes from not just Trump's presidency, but the fact that he spawned all these kind of like mini Trumps. And people even if people don't pay a lot of attention to politics, they turn on the TV and they see Kerry Lake or Marjorie Taylor Greene or, like last fall, Mehmet Oz. And they see these people who are like really, they're beyond regular politics, right? Yeah. They're beyond, like you and I, we might be able to, disagree with a Mitt Romney or a John McCain on politics, but this current group, like they are bringing a level of like lying and insane conspiracy theories and a real like vitriolic hatred that is like so off-putting, I think, to like not just progressives, but I think like just regular mainstream people. Like I think MAGA is such a polarizing thing.
Yep. When we come forward with our guest, Jeet Heer, National Affairs Correspondent for The Nation, two other things I want to get to before we lose him at the top of the hour. One issue he wrote about, this sort of progressive Midwest resurgence. We were talking earlier in this hour about what progressives are to do in this presidential race, given that Joe Biden may be a good Democrat, but he's not a progressive by any stretch. What are progressives to do this time around in 2024? We'll talk about that and a piece that Jeet recently wrote about a resurgence of progressives in the Midwest, at least. And there's been so much news this week, I haven't gotten to Elon Musk. I want to talk about that as well, and what he's really doing to just destroy Twitter. Both NPR and PBS have said they are no longer using Twitter over misleading labels added to their accounts. So two major news organizations, NPR and PBS, have both backed away, and they join a long list of folk who are no longer using Twitter. Elon Musk seems to be imploding this platform, which many have used for a lot of good reasons and purposes over the years. But he's buying it for billions of dollars and then tearing it up, as it were. We'll talk about that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the Evan-On, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
This just added to the National Recording Registry. Stick around to find out what queen is getting her flowers. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. If you guessed Queen Latifah, you guessed right. What is the National Recording Registry? Well, since 1850, the U.S. Library of Congress adds notable recordings to the registry each year. This year, 1980s staple songs like Sweet Dreams Are Made of This and Like a Virgin by Madonna, the Synchronicity album by The Police, the Flashdance theme song, the theme from Super Mario, the video game, and Queen Latifah's full All Hail the Queen album. In total, the registry has upwards of over 600 songs.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
The FAA will be hiring air traffic controllers soon. Applications open June 24th through June 27th. If you know someone between the ages of 18 and 30 who might be interested, please tell them to go to www.faa.gov/BE-ATC to apply today. The salary range is $103,000 to $164,000. There's also paid training and school. Again, that's www.faa.gov/BE-ATC. Again, that's www.faa.gov/BE-ATC to apply to be an air traffic controller. This community call to action is brought to you by the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals and KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Let me start with this, Jeet Heer, National Affairs Correspondent for The Nation magazine. The piece you wrote recently, and a few others have been talking about this. We were honored to have Brandon Johnson, the new mayor-elect of the city of Chicago, on this program a couple times during that campaign, and we had him on the day after he won. He's one example. There's the sister Janet in Wisconsin, whose last name I cannot pronounce. I'm sure you can. Who won the Supreme Court seat there. But there seems to be something happening with progressives in the Midwest. Never mind the fact they don't have anybody on the ballot for president, but they are making some headway in parts of this country. Talk to me about that, Jeet.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think the Midwest has become a real battleground over the last, 10 years. And it really goes back to, 2010, where, the Tea Party, took over a lot of places and used gerrymandering to make it very undemocratic, and was pushing these places Wisconsin in particular, really far to the right. And the good thing is that it's a sort of counter-response. And you have cases like in Wisconsin where the Democrats could get 55% of the vote, and the Republicans were still have the majority of seats in the state, which is just nuts. So people are organizing, especially unions felt like their backs were against the wall. This is a place with a real tradition of blue collar, union organizing, and I think it's really coalesced to create a really inspiring movement, and I think Brandon Johnson benefited from that, the teachers union in Chicago, and he's created a new coalition that's as left as anything Chicago's seen since Harold Washington, really. Which is and then Wisconsin as well. I think they're on the verge of taking back the state, of reversing hopefully the gerrymandering. And I think this is the most positive aspect. I think the components are the unions and sort of the young people who live in these places and don't want to live under minority Republican rule.
She won a huge race in Wisconsin. We're talking about it now, and I cannot, as I said earlier. How do you pronounce her last name, Jeet?
Oh, I don't think I can say it either. It's a kind of a very long...
it's Protastowicz.
But the Supreme Court Justice.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody can pronounce her last name. It's spelled, just because I want to humor you, those who are listening, it's spelled Protasiewicz. I'm sure one of my listeners will call me and tell me exactly how to pronounce it. Like Protastowicz, I'm not sure. But it's I just call it the white sister in Wisconsin.
And it wasn't even a close race. She won by 55%. And the GOP, I mean, to go back to the MAGA point, they really went all in on this trans stuff, putting out these messages that they're going to come take away your children, groomers, all this stuff, and it backfired. So that's very inspiring.
When we come forward in our remaining moments with Jeet Heer, how Elon Musk has upended Twitter and his own reputation in just 6 months as CEO after paying billions for it. Here's a quote from Vivian Schiller, who was the former Twitter chair of Global News, in a recent interview. She said the following, and I quote, "Twitter has never been perfect. It had a lot of problems, but it was critical global infrastructure for information that Elon Musk is now systematically, frankly, vandalizing." We'll talk about Elon Musk when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
Hey Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
When Elon Musk agreed to buy Twitter, he promised to make the company better than ever with greater transparency, fewer bots, a stronger business, and more what he called free speech. None of that seems to have happened since he took over. As you recall, he paid $44 billion for it in late October. Now we are told that Twitter is valued at around $20 billion. He paid $44, valued at $20 billion, and some believe that estimate is even high. And he has warned more than once that Twitter may be at risk of filing for bankruptcy. So one day he's suggesting he may file bankruptcy. The next day he's saying he brought it back from the brink of collapse by laying off 80% of Twitter's staff. NPR, PBS, and many others are pulling away from using the platform. In the 2 minutes I have left, Jeet, what do you make of what Elon Musk has done or not done, as it were, vis-a-vis Twitter?
Well, it's been a disaster, and I think it has real wide resonance because Twitter at its best really helped all sorts of groups organize. I mean, there's a thing, Black Twitter, right? Like Black Lives Matter. Like a lot of this coalesced. And unfortunately, like his whole attitude is like, he's trying to squeeze people for money, make profits, and the news value of Twitter, having these verified accounts that you know who's talking and you can quote them, that's all gone. So, like, it's just become a real mess, and I don't see how they pull out of this.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It's his money, so you want to blow $44 billion. He is the richest man in the world. So if you want to blow $44 billion, then that's on you. But for those who use Twitter and have used it for all kinds of good ends and aims, to see the way he's imploding this is kind of sad to watch. But I digress.
It's very sad. It was a great sight at his best. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yep. National Affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, Jeet Heer. Thank you for coming on. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you.
Okay, great. Always great to talk.
Thank you, sir. Just getting started around here. That's hour one. That went fast. Now we've got hours 2 and 3 in front of us. In our second hour, Kasanya K. Wise Whitehead on what these firings mean for cable news, if anything. In our third hour, Barbara McQuaid is back to talk about the Proud Boys on trial. We've been talking so much about Donald Trump and his drama. We haven't gotten to the Proud Boys and their January 6th trial, which is underway. We'll talk about that with her. And on the B side of our third and final hour, Everett Sands, the CEO of Lindustry, joins us live in studio. So 2 great hours in front of us. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the